We do a little pause at the beginning there because so often it doesn't kick in or record right at the beginning. How are we all? How are we all? We like to get some of our coffee moanings in prior to morning, almost, if you know what I mean. Raspberry Mojito Girl, Lucy Loxton, Jew Osler, Fiona, Matt Hancock is a squealer Reed, Julie Everts, first signs of Christmas, Jenny Scam. Who was the Darsky, was it? Darsky, is that your name? Where are you? Where are you? Everyone was saying hello to you. Darsky, can't find you. Fifi Chromac, April Hill. Who else is here? Julesler, said you. Cloda. Margaret O'Brien. Lynn Shear. Tina Davis. Oh, look at you all. Look at you all. Julie Everett, said you. Jenny Scam. Darsky. There you go. Amy May. MeTube. Dale Ibbotson. Jane Collett. Debbie Otero, Amber Grindley, how's Richard? Ooh. Chin chin. Oh, feeling good, looking nice. Well, no, you know what I mean. Good morning, everyone. It's a tube strike in London. I've already been out there, and the traffic is ghastly. Absolutely ghastly. Morning, Carol Aveyard. It's just ghastly. Tube strike, whole tube network screwed, buses are full to the brim, full to the gills, roads are being disrupted by Just Stop Oil. What do you think of the Just Stop Oil? Do you think they've gone too far? Or do you think they have every right to be hanging from the gantries over the M25? I mean, I thought it was a bit tricky. As soon as someone dies, it's going to be bad, isn't it? I mean, it'll be bad because they've died, but it's going to destroy their message, isn't it? Jenny Scam, thank you very much. If you missed it, I called it the last yoga vlog. It's not actually the last, but the next vlog, which is going to be a home time, will have us saying our proper farewells the following morning, because we did actually have one more lesson and then all bugger off ski. But me and Nadia have our reflections still to come on how it went and all that kind of stuff. But what a fabulous bunch of people they all were. All of them. Absolutely all of them. Lovely. Jew Osler, my uncle's 80th birthday today. He's lost his wife last August. Oh dear. Sending Jew Osler's uncle a happy 80th birthday. Christos, it's going to be madness. Uber will be a nightmare to book. You're absolutely right. Morning, Sam French. The yoga vlog was brilliant. Tina Davis, that dog. What about the humping Ronnie? If you don't know what we're talking about, go and check out the humping dog. Raymond Pritchard. You should try Earl Grey. Absolutely marvellous. Nah. I like my caffeine hardcore. Oh, Richard, there you go. There you go. Richard, yeah, I can't even begin to get my head round how far you run and how fast you run on a treadmill. Sometimes when I'm on a treadmill, I think of you and then I have to stop it and just rest. That's not because I've gone fast, it's just because I've thought of you. For anyone who wonders what I'm talking about, Richard Grindley is a fantastic runner. And you're live, isn't he, Amber? Jenny Scam, they've gone too far. They won't get the public support. People are starting to get hurt. A policeman was injured yesterday. He was hit by a car. More concerning for me was the arrest of... interesting point. A journalist for LBC was arrested during the protest, which is a cause for concern because they handcuffed her. And when she showed them her journalist card, they took her. They took her in. They arrested her. They tried to process her and all that kind of stuff. She was on the radio going absolutely, not surprisingly, nuts about it. Moira Instance, hello in Oz, sending you all our love. Well, Rue's Life, you're going to be very lucky because you're going to have a home time or two. You're going to have a green figured hell, and then you've got Crete. That was a yoga retreat. You've got a family in Crete to come. So there you go. Yeah, so, I don't know. It's a tricky one. Their message is on point, the Just Stop Oil. The message is on point. But how do you get... I mean, everyone's talking... I suppose here's the question. Is everyone seeing them protest and going through the hassle? And there were people on the radio talking about how it's not moving and someone couldn't make their funeral. I mean, I have a slight sensitivity to those stories about someone couldn't get to their funeral. Of course, that's tragic, and of course, that's sad. These things also happen in traffic jams and when London's in gridlock, and you could spend days and hours trying to isolate and identify the exact cause of why someone has been held up. Jackie Villino, you're going to Mexico. We'd love to go to Mexico. Elizabeth Murdoch, I presume you're not of the Murdoch Empire. I'm concerned about the legislation that the government will bring in response to this, but how it'll be applied later down the line to restrict any protest. Exactly. What happens often with these kind of laws is they come in on something very specific that everyone goes, yeah, that kind of makes sense. And then indirectly it gets used against other things further down the line when you go, oh, you don't see. It's like when I was a student, there were marches all the time. Raymond Pritchard, do you work for an Earl Grey company? Thanks for the suggestion, but Earl Grey and Lapsang Souchong. Who likes Lapsang Souchong? Oh, God, I heard someone ask for it in a shop the other day. Can I have a cup of Lapsang Souchong? Hi, Andrea Jenner. I'm going to be in North London later. Raymond Pritchard, the police in the UK are beginning to be on a par to the ones in Chechnya. Wow, that's a very harsh comparison. You know what? I don't even think it's malicious by the police. I just think it's it's just all of the dots aren't connected. I just think it's incompetence. Oh, Richard, you are kind. You are kind. I wish I had your abs, though. Darsky, love the yoga vlog series. As I say, you've got half of another episode. Do go back and check it out. There's all sorts of stupidity and silliness in there. Ronnie was funny. Got back to sea in the sea this morning after 4 days of very rough seas. So happy. Sarah Fox, where's that? In cold water. Wow. So anyway, yeah. So talking about strikes, you've got the tube strike. You've got, well, it's not strike, is it? But you've got Just Stop Oil causing havoc. And I've put up a poll asking you whether you think it's right or whether you think they should, nurses, whether they should strike. That's the question. That's the question of the morning. Should nurses strike? Christos, going back to Just Stop Oil, the interview of one of the protesters on Good Morning was pretty much car crash. Valid points there from... That was the final point before we go on to the nurses. Pop your answers about the nurses there. I can see that the majority of you think they should go on strike. Is anyone not using oil anymore? I mean, are people stopping using oil? Are people stopping using oil because of the protests? I hate to say it, I don't think so. Are any of the protests making the government move any faster? Welcome, Natasha Ortash. In their sort of green, credentials. I don't think so. What's happened to yours and Nadia's Instagram? What has happened to yours and Nadia's Instagram? I think nurses should have their hours cut, says Drew Osler. So what do you think about the nurses, guys? What do you think about the nurses? Do you think they should? Do you think they should be allowed to strike? Sarah Taylor, what do you mean? What's happened to yours and Nadia's Instagram? Elaborate, please. I don't think anything has happened to our Instagram at all. Underpaid, overworked, says Jenny Scam. No, when did the government move fast on anything? So early. Yes, Danielle Aberton. Hi, Anne-Marie Franklin. Well, here's my thinking. So a number of nursing unions have decided to go on strike. You may be on the wrong Instagram account, Sarah Taylor. There's fake ones out there. Look for a blue tick. One of the nursing unions has never gone on strike since for 106 years. Arc at that, 106 years. And so this is a decision that hasn't been taken lightly. There was a story earlier today, and it was interesting on the radio whilst I was out, And there were people, there was a woman who rang in and said her father was left in a terrible state. There wasn't the right number of nurses to kind of attend to him. He was dying, but he was cognizant. He had his marbles, if so to speak. He couldn't go to a toilet because there was no one to help him there. He obviously wet the bed. He was in great discomfort, and eventually, obviously, he died. And what was interesting about this woman was, yes, that was just awful. And I think more and more people are having these awful. Anne-Marie, I agree. Protest at the oil refineries, block the gates, and stop the trucks. Obviously awful that her father died. But when asked at the end of this, should the nurses strike, she was unequivocal when she said yes. They should. And I think this is about, a lot of people are going to say no, it's wrong, it's a caring industry, it's going to put more pressure on the NHS, and it is, and we're going into winter and all that kind of stuff. There could be an argument about timing in the year, but we are entering the cost of living crisis now, we are entering energy crises now and all that kind of stuff. But she said yes, and she'd lost someone. And her point was this: unless they strike, and they don't do it often, in some cases, not for 106 years, the general state of the service they're providing will only get worse. So we have to, it's called deferred gratification. I always remember this. I always remember someone saying to me when I thought at college, I just want to go out partying. I don't want to, they were like, deferred gratification, miss a night of fun, do your work, and then have a night of fun once you've done your work. Marion Patel, we've got to hear all sides here. Where are you, Marion Patel? Have you flown up already? Where did you go? Marion Patel saying, but people will not. Essentially, I think the gist of what you're saying was people won't get their procedures and they won't be cared for. Yes, for a day, this will be the case. Yes. It will more. They're saying they're still going to provide A&E services, but even our A&Es are so overstretched. Erin Bullimore, this isn't on nurses. If people die because of the strike, it's the government's fault, not the NHS. And I think this is the problem. I think the government always, it's called shit sticking, isn't it? Where you pass the shit stick. It's got shit on the end of the stick and you pass it on because you don't want to hold it. They're very, very capable. The Labour Party haven't supported the nurse strikes, or haven't come out publicly. And so I think what we do sometimes in this country is we react to the first thing we see, nurses strike, and we don't go behind it to ask the question why. And I just think that's what we need to do. And maybe that's reflected in the fact that in the poll, 72% of you say yes, they should strike. Because look, here's the thing. It's like, yeah, there's a green-fingered hell landing later. Teachers don't want to strike. No one strikes because they want to strike. They strike because they feel they have to. But, and there's a big but, the nurses are asking for a 17.5% pay rise. The argument being that is obviously more than inflation because they've not had a pay rise for so many years. So, they're saying we're actually still worse off than we've ever been. But 17.5%, I think the Daily Telegraph is reporting, that would cost £9 billion. Well, of course, a Tory paper, and yeah, it's going to cost money. It's going to cost money. I think we have an existential crisis with the NHS. Does anyone else think this? I'd be interested to know what some of you think. Absolutely, Mark. Nurses are also humans with needs, Minky Moo. Absolutely. Bad management, Anne-Marie Franklin. Desperate times. What a depressing country we live in right now. The Krieber family. Yes, Faith Goodman, get rid of HS2. Apparently it's going to cost, they're 52 billion in, it's going to cost another 52 billion. Quid quo pro swap plugs the gap. They need to be paid, Melanie Williams. They shouldn't have to strike. Exactly. More nurses, Megan Crocker, are leaving the profession than joining. There will be no staff force in 5 years if we do not strike. You say we, presumably, Megan, are you a nurse? I think the NHS faces an existential problem, is that our population year on year gets bigger. The NHS at some point is going to fall over. Lots of other countries have a shared combination of private and public. Oh, that was like strychnine. Vanessa Wild, yes, NHS is in total crisis. Our health is most precious. The pups don't lie. I worked in the NHS within CAMS, and the amount of waste that goes on makes you wince. Jew Osler, I think nurses should have their hours cut. Yeah, well, that's interesting. There's another way round, but maybe that's a different way of doing it. You reduce their hours. But I guess so many nurses and doctors, they do overtime because they know they can get paid extra money. So anyway, it already has fallen, Jackie Villino. Are you saying the NHS has already crashed? I think, I hate to say it, I think COVID and the delays it created has possibly taken the Achilles heel out of the NHS for the rest of its existence. So anyway, that's the nurse strike. That's just stop oil. Okay, look, every newspaper in the land is leading with a photograph a little bit like the thumbnail on the front of this YouTube live. Everyone should strike at the same time. A national strike, wow. Going back to the 1930s, 1920s. Matt Hancock in the jungle. What did you think, guys? I'm going to ask you a tricky question. Did you soften towards Hancock on I'm a Celeb? Matt Hancock, guys, he went into the jungle. Me too, but I really don't understand why we don't have general strikes. Yeah. Not watching, don't care, Minky Moo. Fair dues. Jackie Villino, hilarious. I still hate him, but I couldn't help but feel entertained. I think Lee, you've kind of cringe-a-rama, says Kirsty Wade. Wow. I'd love some glasses that were cringe-a-rama. I don't know if you noticed, but what's the name of the guy he's with? Sean Walsh? No, not Sean Walsh. Well, Sean, whatever his name is. I don't think he ever recovered from the bemusement of sitting opposite Matt Hancock, right? I don't think he could. I don't think he could understand. He couldn't comprehend it. He couldn't comprehend it. Bethy Kitch, you can see someone from a different point of view and still feel uncomfortable. April Hill not watching it. Sean Walsh, thank you. Ruth Blandford, it was quite funny. I never expected that. Well, it was a fantastic pairing. If you think about what he actually said and what he did, he was reacting a lot to... he was reacting a lot or bouncing off Sean Walsh, wasn't it? I just wanted to read that. Where is it? Someone just said, there's a real lag here. Someone just said that you were a member of the the RCN, Royal College of Nurses, is it? Never striked in 42 years, but I've said yes. There you go. It's a decision not taken easily. On a human level, says Danielle Smith, on a human level, I feel sorry for him, but I can't help but feel outraged for the people that suffered because of the decisions. And of course, what did we think of Boy George? Boy George kind of articulated it. Obviously, he didn't lose his mother, but he could have lost his mother. And he went through all of the, restrictions and limitations and rules that were put upon us in lockdown. And Boy George articulated that. He hasn't articulated it to Matt Hancock, but he mentioned the fact that he feels uncomfortable. And I'll tell you what I did notice. Did you not notice that the entire camp changed the tone of the camp changed? Everyone was a bit, don't know how I feel about this. I mean, a very divisive character. And what was slightly frustrating, in a sense, was as we not warmed to him, but as we found that whole challenge very entertaining, and the exchanges between him and Sean Walsh were funny, it has to be said, drinking tea and eating, what were they eating? What were the things that they were eating? Oh, bloody hell. What are they called? Bakewell tarts. Then he sat down with Charlene, and when she said, "Can you understand why people," he still doesn't seem to get it. And I wondered whether there's a block there. Does anyone else think that? There was a sort of vacancy in the eyes generally, which wasn't necessarily born of malevolence, but maybe he just doesn't get it. What do you think? We'll do this poll again, Shonster McMahon, yeah. Cadagirl, I do feel sorry for Boy George when he was saying about his mum. Boy George might... Yeah, I've got that feeling Boy George might leave. I felt he was indicating that. ITV could be in all sorts of stress. Imagine if all the campmates decided to walk. That would be interesting. It would be a general strike on I'm a Celebrity. Imagine if they all go on strike. Imagine if there's a strike in the jungle. Bloody hell, Cherry Bakewells, didn't they look nice? Especially, they were the Mr. Kipling ones, weren't they? Jenny's scam going back to the nurse. It's interesting that the nurse strike's happening at the same time that we're all talking about Matt Hancock. We all stood on the steps clapping them. That was a good point. God, there's a real lag going on over here. Sam French, no, definitely not. He shouldn't be in there. He just wants to try and win the public back. But yeah, Sam French, the only way, you're right, the only way he's going to win the public back is to somehow acknowledge, yeah, there's going to be a green-fingered hell later, Joanne, is somehow acknowledge, if not necessarily, you know what, I mean, I don't know. Lots of politicians have had affairs. And I think it was the hypocrisy, which obviously sent us all mad, wasn't it? Strike in the Jungle is a new show. Vanessa Wild, well done, Charlene, for questioning Hancock. Yeah, no, it was well done. But, I mean, it was hardly a killer question, was it? Why are you here? But I suppose the question of, do you understand why this won't go down well? But he looked totally bemused. Well, he didn't even look bemused. He just looked vacant. It's like, yeah. I mean, interestingly, people were going on about the fact that he should have been, in Parliament and all that. But apparently, I think they're going to recess today, don't they? Lucy Williams, I really think Matt Hancock isn't a bad man. It's just that all his failings were public. He knows the other side of the story here. He worked damn hard in and out in such hard times. I think there was a natural sense, me and Nadia were sitting there, and there was a natural sense that you don't like seeing bullying of any sort. And I thought the camp actually dealt with him incredibly respectfully and humanely, in a sense. I don't think anyone kind of like turned their back or whatever. They welcomed him as a human. I think Baba said we've got to treat him as a human and all that kind of stuff. But I think what's going to sink in, it's going to be like, they're going to be, because I think we all struggled with kind of Stockholm syndrome, don't you, during lockdown. So we lived for those lectern press conferences, next slide please, and all that kind of stuff. And so we felt somewhat controlled, and we were all hanging on their every breath, and he was controlling literally, they were controlling literally what we were going to do each day. And so in a sense, I think what's happened here is they'll have seen him walk in, they've treated him humanely, and then they're going to be reminded, or they're going to get some kind of, it's going to trigger memories, isn't it? It's going to trigger memories. It's going to trigger the pandemic. I mean, I think we've all managed to kind of slightly obscure it. Lee Doran, I was surprised at how welcomed he was, but going on a reality program isn't the right way of proving you're a good person. Continue working and show people that way. I said this to Nadia the other day, but I mean, I think Rishi Sunak's snub of him in that lineup was a clear message. Your time is done. Feel sorry for Mike because he would want to do trials, but now won't get to. Faith, go. That's funny you should say that, Faith. Nadia made a valid point. She said they'll be getting bored. It's a very small space. He'll be getting so bored, Mike Tyndall, as will the others. And as you say, Marion Patel, people will vote him to do more tasks. And so, if Matt Hancock's going to be made to do everything, they're going to get bored stiff. But that, in a sense, that's the art of the reality show. You keep them restricted, and they can't do much. That's the art of the show. And now, an interesting story is this. Matt Hancock, obviously, has appeared in the show, but hundreds of MPs The Independent is reporting, hundreds of MPs have reportedly downloaded the app, the I'm a Celebrity app, so that they can make Matt Hancock face trials. Northern Ireland Secretary Chris Heaton Harris suggested many of Hancock's former colleagues in Parliament and colleagues were gleefully voting to see him face ordeals. It's like Anton Deck said last night. Suddenly everyone in Westminster is downloading the I'm a Celebrity app. Mr. Heaton Harris, the Northern Ireland Secretary, said Hancock should be here with us voting and debating in Parliament. As I said, there was only one more day of that. No one's going to report that because it doesn't suit the narrative. But it's better to be clear and honest about that. But you're right. Whoever said it, was it Shonsta Migmon? We should ask this question in a couple of days. Here's what I genuinely think. I think, and I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's something about his brain or personality or a condition or whatever. I think he either one of two things. He can't see or understand what's going on because he's incapable of it or has a sort of an emotional, a genetic emotional inability to comprehend, or he's a totally egotistical, delusional, slightly sociopathic person who just cannot see things from any other opinion and believes he's right. I saw a little bit, I don't know if anyone else did, I saw thick-skinned Jackie Verlina, I saw something of a potential schoolboy who might have been bullied a lot at school. And so in the realm of politics, he had power and he managed to and status, which he horrendously cut from beneath his own legs. Or the pups don't lie, maybe a bit of both. Maybe. Because did you not notice he was looking at Sean Walsh and all of those little chats in the shed or wherever it is? He was kind of looking at him for his cues as to where he should say something. And he ended up kind of really, I mean, this is my point. He wasn't in himself very funny. Sean Walsh was a great person to have next to him, but he was laughing in response to Sean Walsh a lot. I'm just wondering. I don't know. I don't like to use the term autistic or but is he somewhere? Is he somewhere? It could be the case that maybe and could that make some sense of why he didn't really understand? I don't know. I'm trying to be generous in a sense, I suppose. I don't know what you think. Do you agree? Any of you agree? Sarah Fox, you do. It's going to be fascinating. It's going to be fascinating. But you're right. I think Boy George is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting where Boy George goes. I thought the young girl, the young lady, was great. She was firm with him, but she was fair. Right, John Lewis advert. The John Lewis advert landed this morning, first thing this morning. We will be reacting to it probably tomorrow. Nadia's on a girls' night out tonight, so it won't be tonight. But yeah. But it's being reported that the John Lewis advert is tackling foster care, and so they are sort of embracing a sort of social dialogue, or they're embracing a sort of a well-meaning cause, if you like. It features a social worker, it features a young teenager, it features a foster home. It's going to see its TV premiere during the advertising break for I'm a Celebrity this evening. I could possibly do a reaction later tonight when I'm back, but yeah, it features the John Lewis Bear. So it's a challenge, isn't it? It's a bit of a challenge for all these kind of Christmas supermarket adverts, because on the one hand they want to sell us stuff, but on the other they need to acknowledge that it's a difficult time. So yeah, John Lewis advert is coming. I don't watch it. Bev Berry. I'm a celeb, I guess you're talking about. A couple of other stories. Jennifer Aniston. So hang on, a quarter of you have softened towards Hancock. We'll ask that again. Can someone remember that number? Someone make a note of that number and we'll come back to that in several days, if he's still in there. If you have My John Lewis app, it's on there. They're not very Christmassy generally, Ruth Blandford. I know what you mean. I know what you mean. All the other celebs must be relieved they won't have to do the trials because Hancock... but you see, I think secretly most of the celebrities in there want to do the trials because, of course, it's more screen time. It's more of an opportunity for them to connect with the viewership and all that kind of stuff. Okay, Jennifer Aniston has revealed that she tried IVF and sadly she couldn't get pregnant. She said she threw everything in a recent interview or a new interview. She said that she threw everything at getting pregnant and that she said that the baby making road was challenging. She says she has zero regrets, but she discussed the fact that, you know, she was under an enormous amount of stress in her 30s and 40s as people were asking, would she and wouldn't she and all that kind of stuff. She said that she would have given anything if someone had said to me, freeze your eggs and do yourself a favor, but she didn't. She was busy with her career and all that kind of stuff. She was obviously with Brad Pitt. She was with Justin Theroux. When she said that when her marriage to Theroux ended, she said it was absolute lies, that it was about her not wanting children. She said there was this is where I thought the story got interesting. She said there's a narrative that I was just selfish and that she only cared about her career. God forbid a woman is successful and doesn't have a child. What do you think of that? The narrative that I was selfish. I find that a really curious, because there is that suggestion, isn't there? It's kind of like, you know, I mean, I'm going to be brutally honest. It's a terror. I think we're culturally programmed that when a woman over a certain age hasn't had children, whether we say anything or not, the thought passes through one's mind. Because often it's a question of, do you have children? You work with someone, do you have kids? Or you hear people talk about your kids, oh, what does your kid do? And all that kind of stuff. So, you know, the idea that you're so, really? So is the act of having children always unselfish? I think we did a Confessions of a Modern Parent about this, that potentially having children in itself is extremely selfish. And not so, think of the word selfish as in about the self. Not necessarily selfish even, but about the self. You know, lots of people want their kids to be mini them and all that kind of stuff. They have status and all that kind of stuff. Daniel Smith, I don't know why you should have to talk about something so personal in public. Well, I suppose when there's always speculation and always chit-chat, you might just want to kind of say, look, you know, this is the case. This is what it was. Thanks, Julie Everts, writing down the poll vote. I feel sorry for her that she has to justify this to everyone, Debbie Otero. Yeah, I agree. It's not selfish to not have or even desire children. Perhaps the opposite, DT, that's exactly what I'm saying. To say it's selfish to whom? There's no child for it to be selfish towards. Or are we actually talking about the imaginary Jennifer Aniston child that could have lived? Has she somehow killed that child because she didn't have it? What a curious cultural, I'm not saying anyone specifically has said that, but what a curious cultural attitude to women not having children, isn't it? Sammy J. Peach, I used to be judgmental against people not wanting children, but I've changed my mind. I think it's up to the individual, better if the child is wanted. Precisely, Sammy J. Peach. I think that's exactly where I'm at. And like you, I don't think it's being judgmental, but it spikes one's interest always, and maybe it never will. Because I think as humans, we have this idea that perhaps in terms of nature, we're on this planet to procreate. And if you remove that, I suppose, is where the selfishness thing comes from. So you're just living life for you? Is that selfish? I think we need to challenge that. Anyway, thought-provoking. I think maybe we should have a bit more of a chat about that with Nads. I texted her and I said, I think you guys should do this on Loose Women. Donald Trump is spitting feathers. I'm just wrapping up now. Donald Trump is spitting feathers. He's blaming everyone. He's even blaming Melania Trump for the fact that there wasn't a Republican wave. So for anyone who's not that interested or au fait with American politics, essentially these midterm elections didn't deliver Trump the victory or the candidates that he had supported. It seemed very much that potentially, what's the name of the chap in Ron DeSantis in Florida could be a competitor to become the Republican candidate. So essentially Trump's got big competition here and the day didn't go according to plan. He's even blamed Melania Trump for him backing some of the wrong candidates. But apparently people are reporting that he's in the middle of an, quote, hours-long meltdown. Imagine being random. We've got to crack the wall. We're going to have to hit the wall. I've got to go and play golf. Going to play golf. Rob DeSanctimonious, Rob DeSanctimonious. Well, he's threatening that if Rob DeSanctimonious runs for Republican leadership, I'm going to release stuff. I know stuff that probably his wife doesn't know. I've got information on him that his wife doesn't know. So for those who don't like Trump, there'll be some glee going on today around that. And as some people always come in here and say, well, don't knock Biden. We supported Biden. We just don't get a sense over here of what he's achieving. So Donald Trump is flapping around Mar-a-Lago. No, this is what's going on. Melania Trump. Melania, why did you make me support him? And final story, this just made me laugh. Is anyone a fan of the band The Cure? I have to confess, there's a viral clip of Robert Smith, the lead singer of The Cure, telling a journalist that he's not as excited. It's very funny. You have to see it in the context. Anyway, Paul Weller. I've always found Paul Weller a bit of an arse. Sorry, I'm just going to say I've always found him a bit of an arse. Paul Weller has called the lead... Just wait 1 second. What's going on? Sorry. I think Chi-Chi agrees that Paul Weller's a bit of an arse. He called Robert Smith a fat C-word. Strong, isn't it? The Cure's keyboardist has responded to Paul Weller's diatribe against Robert Smith. Paul Weller hit out at the Cure frontman in an interview, calling him a fat C, and suggested he'd like to slap him. What the hell? He said, I can't effing stand them. Effing fat C, with his lipstick and all that bollocks. He's my age, isn't he? He's an effing knob end. I don't like him. There you go. I'd effing slap him or something. It's a bit strong. If I'm brutally honest, I find Paul Weller a right miserable old git. Doesn't mean he hasn't written some good songs, but he needs to... Him and the Gallagher brothers, come on. Whereas Robert Smith, I find, whenever I see him, he's deadpan. I mean, Robert Smith's description, this is funny, right at the end. I mean, I think Robert Smith in another interview said something along the lines of, he said, punk had nothing to do with social entertainment or politics. Even people that think they're socially aware, like Paul Weller, it does no good at all, ultimately. You'd have to be stupid to believe someone like Paul Weller. But then he says about himself, similarly, you'd have to be particularly stupid to believe someone like me. Anyway, I'm a big fan of The Cure. I won't have Paul Weller knocking The Cure. Anyway, guys, there you go. As I say, Green-Fingered Hell will be landing tonight. It's a curious one. There's a guest appearance by a curious character that you may all know. Lee Peart? What? In Green-Fingered Hell, I hear you say? How strange is that? Have a lovely day. Toxic masculinity. How dare you mention lipstick? Absolutely. Have a lovely day, guys, and see you in Green-Fingered Hell, except I won't be